So on the line, as promised, we have the COVID czar, Mr. Richard Carter, taking time out of his very, as you can imagine, busy schedule. Mr. Carter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kirk, and good afternoon to the listeners of Capital Media.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for taking the time. Now, of course, I know you're pretty much one of the busiest persons in Barbados. We really want to get out there and let our listeners and the public at large hear about the latest with COVID-19.
Okay, so I can say that the number of cases that we are seeing of COVID-19 in Barbados continues to grow. The latest figures, I believe, that might have been put out by the Ministry of Health was I think 39 cases. But we are continuing to see testing being done every day. We are doing around 30 tests every day, and we are seeing positive cases turn up pretty much every day. We've had one day, I think, in the last 2 weeks or so that we did not have a case, but we are continuing to see cases every day. We've also been imploring and I'm asking Barbadians to respond to the messaging that has been going out. I think almost everyone would have heard the messaging by now. Keeping your distance, keep 6 feet away from persons, particularly if you're queuing. Observe respiratory hygiene. So if you're coughing or sneezing, cough into a tissue, then wash your hands, or cough into the sleeve of your arm if you are not able to maintaining the physical distancing, as I've mentioned. All of those are things that we've been trying to get out, and we believe that the message is out there. But of course, there are persons who are prepared to breach these things, and obviously we are facing the consequences of some of that.
That's right. In your opinion, why have Bajans not been adhering to the advice given?
Well, it is not just Bajans, and let me make it clear that it is not all Bajans either, because we have been seeing compliance with some of the advice that have been given, particularly by a number of responsible business places, putting lines down in tape in areas where people are supposed to be queuing, restricting the numbers of people entering businesses, and so on. And we've seen compliance among Barbadians as they go about their business. But there is a minority, but it is a large enough minority for us to worry about and to be concerned about, that is not observing the things that we've seen. In terms of why, I think it is just human nature that if things are put out there as rules, there will be people who will be prepared to break them, and as a matter of fact, there will be people who will make it their business to break them and to advise publicly of their intent or the fact that they're breaking them. It's human nature. I think in places like France, which had penalties in place for violating curfews, they were seeing up to 6,000 people being fined in a day. Barbados has, I believe it was announced today, have seen the first case of someone going before the court for breaching the curfew. And we can expect more of that to continue.
That's right. I know we have their ear and persons are locked in, captive audience. What are the societal risk of such conduct, of those breaches and continued conduct and contact as well?
Yeah, so we're not just seeing these things on the basis of us pulling them out of the air. One of the things that we did actually through the Ministry of Health, even though the persons there are well trained and very competent, and I have a lot of respect for them, of course, we reached out to the University of the West Indies department, which deals with epidemiology and with health, public health specialists. They did some modeling for us of what happens if you get 50% compliance, 75% compliance, or 100% compliance in relation to the behaviors that we are asking people to adopt. And that modeling is really scary as to what happens even if you get 75% compliance or 50% compliance. The numbers of cases you can expect begin to grow exponentially. So we're not just seeing this on the basis of us wanting, obviously, to restrict the movement of Barbadians. We're dealing with an epidemic that is deadly. Thankfully, we have not seen a death in Barbados as yet, but we have seen people who have gotten very, very ill and who have required very serious advanced medical treatment. Thankfully, we have it available in Barbados. But Barbadians know by now that there are several Barbadians who have died from this. So this is not a joke matter. It's not a matter that we need to or that we can take lightly. A number of Barbadians in the diaspora unfortunately have passed away over the past couple of days. We are praying and working hard with the Ministry of Health and the doctors who are working with those persons who are infected to try to ensure that we have no deaths. But of course, it is not entirely in our hands because the disease profile that we've seen in Barbados ranges from 20 up to about 80 years. And we all know that those persons who are older and who have underlying conditions are much more vulnerable.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. And waiting with bated breath, everyone's waiting to hear if there's a national shutdown. I mean, you must really look at those persons that take the time to forge what appear to be official documents coming from the various ministries, and even today, while persons are trying to go about their business. Could you address if there is a national shutdown coming?
What I can say is that 2 days ago, I believe it was, I spoke to the public of Barbados and urged persons to adopt the measures that have been put in place, to observe the restrictions that have been put in place. And I advised Barbadians then that the government of Barbados will not take lightly its responsibility to all the citizens of Barbados in respect of the observation of these rules, because they are for the protection of the health of the entire society. I attracted some criticism for what people considered the sternness and the way I approached this, but I see no other way to have approached it if you're dealing with a matter of life and death, and it is literally life and death. As to whether other measures will be coming, I know that the acting Prime Minister is supposed to address the nation this afternoon, and I'm not privy to what she will say, because that would have been a matter that would have been discussed with the Cabinet and would have been basically the preserve of persons who are members of the Cabinet. I am not. But I can say that if we said on Monday that there are persons who are not respecting the rules that have been established for conduct and behavior, and that if people continue to do so, we will see a tightening of those restrictions. And if over the period of the past couple of days since that statement was made, we are seeing behaviors again in contravention of those restrictions, then persons can make their own judgment as to what is likely to be coming.
Well said, Mr. Carter. And of course, there are persons who wish to operate on the correct side of the law. So, clarity if you can visit the beach, exercise, swim, not in groups. Inhale some of the seawater. Is this allowed, or if not?
As it currently stands, there's no restriction on someone going to the beach or going to exercise. Obviously, one of the ways by which persons can protect themselves is to maintain as good health as possible, and that includes their diet, but it also includes ensuring that they get appropriate exercise, because all of that goes into the fitness of the body and the capacity to fight off infection, which is essentially what we are asking Barbadians to do. But however, going to the beach with a group of persons, a group of 20 persons, and you're all wrapped up in one another, obviously is in contravention of the restrictions that we've set down. Even going into social gatherings, as we have seen a number of people doing, where persons are congregating in large groups, those are things that we need to put behind us for the time being while we try to save and preserve life. And you did ask the question, which I suppose I didn't directly address, about persons who are putting fake news into the public media. And you really must question, as I did. Smokey Burke sang a song earlier last year, which he unfortunately did not get to perform at the Calypso competition, but with a rhetorical buzzer asking him, is this what we died for? Is this what our ancestors died for? To come to a place where people would use the education that they've been given free of charge by this government to go and place Barbados government mastheads on stuff that they're circulating, knowing it to be false and knowing that it is going to create the kind of panic and so on that eventually happened as a result of that. is this what we struggle to provide our education for our citizens for it to be put to such reckless and destructive purposes? So I hope, and I know that some of the matters have been referred to the Royal Barbados Police Force. There's a cyber crimes unit there. We know the capacity of our police officers, and I personally hope that we will see the persons who are responsible for these things dragged before the court and punished to the full extent of the law.
Yes, very, very true. It's very malicious, very dangerous. And of course, we look for that official. We want to encourage all the listeners to act on the right side of the law and also listen to official updates. We've been chatting with the COVID-19 czar, Mr. Richard Carter. And of course, you'll see that update this evening. I hear that update, 7 p.m. from the acting Prime Minister acting, the Honorable Santia Bradshaw, MP. So, Mr. Carter, thank you so much for taking the time. If there's anything else you wish to tell us before you run off to complete your busy task, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, I think you said it for us, Kirk. The message out there is clear. I looked at, I've been following the updates on the epidemic, obviously internationally. We're up to 950,000 cases of this virus worldwide, and that is positive confirmed cases. The medical health experts suggest the number may be anything up to twice or three times the number of confirmed cases, because many people get the mild case of the disease. The final thing I want to say is that I did ask earlier about your demographic, and I know that there are a lot of young persons who feel themselves invincible, or young persons who will get mild forms of the disease and will be able to shrug it off. But those young persons have mothers, they have fathers, many of them have grandfathers and grandmothers, they have aunts and uncles, some of whom are suffering with some of the diseases that predisposes them to extra risk, some of whom are sufficiently elderly that those persons are at particular risk. Even if you do not do it for yourself, do it for those members of your family who you could infect and who you could be looking to bury.
So true. It is not about you, that's right. Don't be selfish and thinking, okay, I'm not at risk. You could be infecting your loved ones, and then, of course, a month from now, whole different story as we continue. Thank you so much for taking the time. On behalf of the entire team here at Capital Media HD 99.3, it means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to our listeners at home and in the car, hopefully more at home than in the car. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Carter. Thank you.
Okay, good evening.
Thank you.